With a good chunk of western Massachusetts under moderate risk for West Nile virus, we wanted to know what led up to this uptick.
And Western Mass News reporter Reagan Lockery joins us live in studio after getting answers. Reagan?
Chris, Abby, the state has new information out today. In total, 74 positive samples of West Nile virus have been found in mosquitoes here in our state. On your screen, you can see a map of the Western Mass towns and cities that have detected positive samples of West Nile virus in mosquitoes. Most recently, Springfield was added to the list with one positive sample. Springfield Health and Human Services Commissioner Helen Colton Harris releasing a statement today that reads, in part, quote, "Although the risk of catching West Nile virus remains low, it is important for our residents to be aware of this finding, that we now have a confirmed case of a mosquito testing positive for West Nile virus." She goes on to say, most people who are infected do not experience any symptoms of illness. Those that do often experience a headache, fever, nausea, vomiting, and body aches. Although in most cases, the individual with mild symptoms will recover on their own after a few days or several weeks, it is still important to check in with your primary caregiver. Western Mass News spoke with entomologist Bob Russell of American Pest Solutions, who tells us he's not surprised. Western Mass has seen more positive samples than in previous years, considering the amount of rain leading to high amount of mosquito breeding this summer.
Standing water everywhere in the woods represents complete mosquito development in 7 days when you have 70 degrees or better. So the ability for mosquito populations to bloom this year has been unprecedented.
Luckily, there have not been any positive cases of West Nile virus in humans or animals, but with the risk spreading across Massachusetts, it's still important to keep yourself safe. Russell suggests using repellents when doing outdoor activities, especially at dusk or dawn when mosquito populations are at their peak. Reporting live in studio, Reagan Lockery for Western Mass News.